a moment like this is exactly when America Makes has the opportunity to demonstrate the value that they provide to our industrial base and to society.
Hello, my name is Robert Schmidt. I'm Deloitte's Chief Futurist, also known as Mr. IoT. Welcome to my show, Coffee with Mr. IoT, and my guest today is Kelly Marchese, a principal in Deloitte, and you're leading our effort around America Makes. How are you doing, Kelly? How is everybody at your place? Are you healthy? Family good?
Yeah, everything's all good here. I'm dialing in from Durham, North Carolina, which I live with, where I live with my husband and my 15-year-old daughter, and we all have different corners of the house where we do our online work.
I gotta ask you, is this a background or is this truly what you're sitting in front? Because it looks gorgeous.
That is my fireplace in my office, yes.
That's really, really cool. I love it. It's awesome.
Thanks.
So Kelly, America Makes, there was a big article out there, very topical. Tell us a little bit about it. It's so interesting to me how technology helps us in this situation today. You know, I love tech, and this is particularly awesome. So tell us about it.
Well, I'm delighted to be on the program with you this afternoon because America Makes has been a friend. We've been a friend to America Makes and vice versa since almost the beginning of their journey as an innovation institute funded by the Department of Defense. And a moment like this is exactly when America Makes has the opportunity to demonstrate the value that they provide to our industrial base and to society. So America Makes is sitting at the center of being the matchmaker between those folks out there who have the ability to create technical designs for personal protective equipment, those people who would approve those designs, those people who would make those that personal protective equipment, and then matchmaking with those people who desperately need it. And so them being at the hub is a great place because they know that entire ecosystem. They understand the federal agencies, they understand the maker and OEM community, and they can help fulfill the needs of the health systems and other organizations out there that are so desperately need that personal protective equipment. It's a huge job, but it's one that they've been preparing for the last 4 years.
What's your role in all of this, besides being super helpful and super smart?
So we understand America Makes mission. We understand a lot of the government regulations and requirements. And America Makes itself is a pretty small organization, a pretty small, nimble organization, but doesn't have a whole lot of infrastructure. And so one of the things we've been able to do is bring some of the things that larger organizations may have and help lift them up so that they don't collapse under the weight of the need. So everything from understanding what their website needs are to understanding how to put out the type of strategic communications to access effectively the ecosystem out there, helping them design the processes so that you connect these organizations that haven't historically been connected, but how do we create an on-the-fly process so that they can be effectively connected to achieve the mission. So we've got some really smart people that we've been able to bring in, everything from regulatory to website design to strategic communications. And you know, the beautiful part is that you don't even have to ask twice. People really want to help.
So I started out by talking about how this is technology that helps, and you talk about so much more that goes on there. But maybe we can dive into the technology part for a second. We often talk about 3D printing and additive manufacturing.
Right.
And, you know, can you just a little bit talk about the terms, what it means, and what's going on? This is so fascinating that we're actually printing parts to be worn. It sort of blows my mind.
Yes, absolutely. So 3D printing, which is which we call additive manufacturing, because it better describes exactly what's happening. Instead of traditional subtractive manufacturing, it layer by layer creates a product, be that metal or plastic. And then right now what we're primarily dealing with is plastic. and it's printing things on demand in a decentralized way. That is the beauty of additive manufacturing, is you remove all of the capital intensive efforts that come along with manufacturing. Usually you have one site where you have a manufacturing facility, you've invested so much capital in all this equipment so you can print in huge volumes economically. 3D printing or additive manufacturing, you can distribute your manufacturing because you have you don't have as much infrastructure that's required for that production. You can have a printer and your raw material source, and you can print, maybe not in the same high volumes, but you can print on demand, so you don't have to ship things as far.
Super interesting, right? If you think about it, typically with plastic, we push it into something or we mold it out of something. And here, there's just one layer after the other that gets put on top of it. Super thin, about 1.1, 0.1 to 0. Whatever, 4 millimeters thick layers that get put on top of each other until you get the product, hence the term additive.
That's right. That's right. Using a heat source like a laser, and there's a lot less waste. So instead of stamping something out and you have all this wasted material, there is a lot less wasted precious material, and you know, by just creating the design and building it up.
And then the machines are smaller, right? You don't have this huge machine. You have smaller machines that reside exactly where you need it.
That's exactly right. In fact, several of the folks on our team, they have printers in their homes, and they've been, as we're doing conference calls, my friend Ian was talking about he's had to move his 3D printer into his bathroom because it was making so much noise that he couldn't listen to the conference call. So yes, they're much smaller, and he, you know, later that day he came out with his PPE and was able to show us what he'd been able to print while we were on calls that day together.
So is there an ability for private people who have 3D printers to actually do some of this?
That's exactly the point. Everybody is empowered. So obviously, large manufacturers that have invested in doing 3D printing, they have the more heavy duty, faster printers, maybe the newer. But the whole point of this mission that America Makes is helping with is, let's make sure we have approved designs out there, accessible for the everyday person to be able to pull those prints down and print that PPE in their house. And we can create this amazing community who can all chip in and help, not just making PPE for themselves, but if we have, you know, 5,000 makers out there that have printers across the US, if each of them start making them, we can really make a difference in some of those states that are feeling the need right now with the shortages.
I have to say there's something really special about this when we in Deloitte, who typically work with large companies and so forth, and then I hear you talk about makers. And makers such a it's such an underground, almost like it's a separate culture, right? There's the maker culture that goes on. And so when we start working with them, I love that in situations like this, how we adapt and move on. Are you a maker? I mean, I have to admit, I do have a printer at home.
Do you?
So, you know, I'm kind of like, my next question went to, so do I have to make my own slicer profile, or are you giving me the G code? And then I realized maybe that's a little too far off from this conversation, but I want to ask you, are you having a printer at home?
I don't have a printer at home. My daughter and I've talked about it. Like I said, she's 15 and really interested in robotics and engineering. And this is one of those moments where I think it would be definitely worth the investment so that we can make a difference. Sadly, this pandemic here has done one good thing, which is it has united people in a cause that they can work on together. So while makers are could be considered an underground community, all of those folks that are, I mean, tens of thousands of people are out there looking for these designs. They want to do good, right? We all are united in trying to figure out how we keep each other protected. I heard over the weekend that the mayor of New York, or the governor of New York, put out a call for people to come help in New York, and there were like 20,000 people who said, "Sign me up," and they volunteered to come into New York to help with the crisis in New York City. That says something about us as a human race, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Let's do our part.
It's a really odd time, right? There is so much pressure and there's so much stuff going on. I mean, I just heard a number yesterday in the area I live, which is a lot of tourism. 65% people are not working right now, which is nuts. And then you hear stories like the one you talked about, where people come to help each other, and that sort of like is the good stuff that you see around.
That's right.
So Kelly, let's shift gears for a second. Let's get out of the going ons today. Tell us a little bit about yourself. You've been with Deloitte for quite a while.
Right.
Tell us about you and your career. Some of the highlights. I'd love to hear some of that. I always love to hear about other people within Deloitte because our paths are often so different.
That's right. That's right. Well, I like to say that I'm a dirty fingernails kind of gal. I fell in love with engineering in high school. I had the opportunity to do an engineering camp in high school at Virginia Tech, and that's when I got the bug. I just love building things, seeing how things are made. I was an industrial engineer, graduated, went and worked for GE in 3 of their different businesses as a manufacturing engineer, and everything from refrigeration to aircraft engines. So I saw the whole spectrum, everything from keep the beer cold to keep the airplanes up in the sky. So it gave me a really good foundation. And I like I said, I enjoyed understanding and seeing how things were made. Gave me a great foundation. I went to Duke and got my MBA, and that's when I got connected to consulting, because what I realized is I love to problem solve, but I don't like to do the same thing over and over and over again. And that is absolutely true in our business, is we get to go in to see, check out really hairy problems and help organizations overcome a lot of those hurdles, all the while working with really brilliant people. I'm sure you feel the same way. Often when you're in a room of our teammates, you're just one piece of the cog, right? Yeah, and we all make each other better and lift each other up and come up with solutions that no one could do individually. So most of my work has been on the commercial side, all in and around supply chain, lean and Six Sigma, digital, and now into digital transformation. And then about 4 years ago, I had the opportunity to move over and to focus on federal agencies and helping bring supply chain transformation to different federal agencies.
So I'm curious, we had this time, I'm sorry, I'm coming back to this, but I'm looking at it from a different angle. In a time like this, federal services are so important, right? I mean, in general, I think for me, at least, I know that, and I don't want to talk for others too much, but for me, you really start appreciating what services that the government and, the government around you and federally provide.
Right.
How has that changed in the last few weeks for you? I know you work on the additive manufacturing right now, but that stuff has changed too. How?
Right. Well, I will tell you, over the last 4 years, the biggest difference I have seen between working in the commercial industry and federal is the mission orientation. It does really give you a kind of a burning desire to overcome challenges that are in front of you. So that I can tell you is with that mission orientation, everything from our clients to also our team members that are focused on helping federal agencies be better. Over the last month or so, the big difference is speed. So often in working with federal agencies, there are a lot of different approvals that are required. And because their organizations are so massive, it's a hugely complex and very costly to do anything of significance. When you're talking about rolling out a digital transformation, and you're talking about, I mean, the size and magnitude of federal agencies are much larger. So it's the time it takes and the dollars it often takes is significant. Right now, it's like being at war with a pandemic, right? So you see these organizations leaning in and saying, what would have to be true? How do we overcome these obstacles? Because lives are on the line. So when lives are on the line, that's when the federal agencies and people are in need. That's when you see these agencies be able to overcome all kinds of obstacles that maybe would have taken more effort in the past or taken more time.
It's actually really encouraging to hear you actively seeing the time cut down it takes to move things forward.
Absolutely.
And,
Well,
I always feel like.
and this America Makes situation is a perfect example. If there weren't such an urgent need, I'm not sure we could have in 2 weeks been able to pull together NIH, VA, FDA, Department of Defense, and America Makes, and activated them to actually work together like this in 2 weeks.
So do you think there's something about in situations like this that the fear of mistakes goes away? It's almost about like, I gotta move something forward. And if that one doesn't work, I'll try this one and I'll try this one.
Right. Well, there's still a fair amount of focus on the kind of the quality and making sure. That's one of the reasons getting designs approved is at the front end. But I think also this situation where we are looking at we have very hard data that people believe around what the alternative is. A shortage of these things is much worse than trying to control the quality of every single device with like a visual inspection. There are expectations around making sure that each product comes off and there's an appreciation for the quality standards each of the printers needs to be sitting within, and they need to have a design and have quality standards around their printers. But there's not going to be an inspection of every single one because that's not possible. And if you put that in place, then we'd never get what we needed out there.
I listened to an interview with Bill Gates, and I don't know if you heard this, but he talked about the only way to accelerate getting a vaccine is that we're gonna invest into building factories for vaccines that never gonna be made.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be able to sequentially do this, but they're going to start building factories that are intended and built for vaccines, because vaccines are differently made, but then we have to throw them away. And so he says there's going to be billions of dollars that are going to be wasted, and it's going to save $1 trillion problems. And
Right.
so it's sort of like, it always reminds me, there's like the magnitude we're thinking of what it is, and sort of like you got to think outside the box in these.
That's right. That's fascinating. And I believe it. I totally believe it.
So I want to close, and maybe you have a really great, I know you do, so I don't even need to say maybe. You talk about hairy problems, and this is your favorite thing about being in consulting. If you'd had to pick one or two hairy problems, what would it be? What's the one you think back, or what's any one you think back where you say, you know what, that was one of those why I am where I'm at today?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I guess one of the ones that I think about that really shaped my career was back in like 99 through 2001. I was working on a project for the Navy and helping them think about aviation and maintenance management of their aircraft. And that was a big, hairy, interesting problem that I still think about to this day. And we brought together people from different parts of the Navy and helped them see across the whole life cycle of an aircraft and how supply chain and aviation maintenance had to happen. And the problem that we had back then was limited by the technology that's available. And I'm now looking at that with a whole different, look at where we are today and what we can do today now. We can solve problems that I never thought were possible back then. And so it's not often that you get to revisit something and bring a whole different lens to it. So that's what gets me energized right now, is being able to look back at my much younger self, 20 years ago, and be able to go back and say, look, and what we can do now. And we have to do this now.
It's so interesting, right? I talk about IoT like it's something that was invented a couple of years ago, right? And, I think you invited me actually to meet with one of your client colleagues. And I always got to remind myself when I talk to the Navy or the Army or the Air Force, they've had IoT, connected devices, being connected to the ground for the longest freaking time. It's been a long time they had this. So, I always got to put the hat on, like, yes, they have thought through these problems a long time. They have a lot of solutions. Maybe they don't have access to the new lower cost chips, lower cost connectivity, and those things that we take for granted. but you know, what lens does that put onto some problems that have been thought of a long time ago?
That's right. All of the focus in those agencies is around getting that technology into the mission equipment, right? Now we can actually justify, because it's lower cost, taking some of that sophisticated technology and put it in the way that they run their organization or run their maintenance and supply chain, which in the past they've been had to do pretty in a pretty less sophisticated way.
Got it. Kelly, any closing thoughts?
All I would say is thanks for the time. It's always a pleasure, and look forward to tuning into your programs in the future.
Thanks, Kelly, for being here. And with this, another Coffee with Mr. IT is coming to an end. Thank you for watching. If you missed any of today's or previous shows, please check out our playlist, both on YouTube as well as on your favorite podcast. And with that, please stay safe and have a great day.